In this keynote, we will listen to the opinion of Professor Theo about the importance of MOOCs, open courseware, open educational resources, in order to improve the school of the future.
And the next topic is giving stage to Professor Theo is going to offer us his opinion about what you should suggest to improve quality of the school concerning another topic, the use of MOOCs, the use of openware courses, resources, and if university is really changing or it's another aspect of the same reality. Professor Theo is the director of the Multimedia department at Innsbruck University. Theo, floor is yours, and thank you very much to be with us.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for inviting me and for being part of this discussion. It's always a wonderful and exhilarating experience to make use of these technologies actually right the way we are doing it now. So I hope I can contribute in a way. And actually, Antonio asked me to put something together dealing with the MOOCs and the OER, the Open Educational Resources Movement, and that's actually my first keyword I wanted to point out. When I say OER movement, I mean movement and also the open courseware initiatives, because there are efforts in educational policies all over the place, from the UNESCO level to the level of a single institution. And there are lots of efforts going on in terms of educational practices and related platforms, creating them, setting them up, making use of them. But there's very little being done in educational theory. The key terms, they don't show up in handbooks or in lexical works. It's just in terms of theory, it's not really an issue so far up to date. So we should be aware of that and also aware of the terms used in there, because when it's about education, and I learned from this discussion we already had the past 1.5 hours, that we have to be aware of the distinction between education and training also. So let me point out quickly some aspects of these discussions, and I skip most of the conceptual considerations to come to a brief conclusion, which is important in my eyes. First of all, Antonio started his considerations with the 2,000-year-old blackboard, or at least the slowly changing school systems and modes of education. And I think that's true to a wide extent. And there are still, even though there are lots of talks going on about reforms, there are different kinds of reform resistance. On the one hand, there is the type of suffering from the many micro reforms, which don't end up in a substantial reform if you look at school systems and also in the system of higher education. And also, on the other hand, as one can observe in many countries, we have a strange development of decisions being taken, but without taking notice of research results which are available if you look at all the issues in higher education. And so that's rather strange. If you look at that history, we have to be aware of what Norbert Pachler called the affordances, those things that technologies offer us. He mentioned new types of collaborations or interactivity, and also enabling multimodal ways of dealing with texts and other documents. So that's one way of thinking it, but on the other hand, we have a history of techno-promises which didn't bring lots of change with us, which kept empty promises. And we had strange developments if we look at the development of school film way back. And we don't know now what, for example, machinima will bring for the school of the futures. And on the other hand, we have to develop a second order level thinking. If we look at the media offers changing schools and also conceptions and imaginations of schooling, if we look about at the films about teaching and learning, about schooling, or novels being written about it, or about the evaluation systems which are not professionally set up, as we just have heard a minute ago, but which are just done online very ad hoc, very quickly, as for example in the German-speaking countries, Prof. So these are issues. Being aware of the histories and the options for the future brings us to a topic when it's about open education, opening up education. Then many of these claims are being done as if there wouldn't have been a process of that. But we have a long history. We can go back to the 17th century if you look at Comenius, who was the first to claim for an education for all, to open it up, to have an open situation for just everybody and not just for special segments of societies. So there is a history of educational claims for opening up and also policies related to it. And actually one can read the history of education as a narrative on opening up education throughout. And so what's new in this debate? What do we have now if we look at those MOOCs and the developments and the special claims of sharing which are all over the place? We have if we look at the initiatives I mentioned, we have a whole variety of initiatives, some of them going back a little bit more than 10 years, some are being taken just recently. Here's a little overview in terms of relevant material to it. It's very few theoretical work done, as I said, but lots of initiatives that want to enable our institutions and the students to learn in a free way. The most recent one is the one show it down here, which is opening educational resources in India. An example for these policy statements comes from Europe, which focuses on the unprecedented opportunity to improve quality, to access and equity in education and training. Well, that's actually a hope. That's a promise. How is it done with open education and who is partaking in it? And if you look at the little evaluation that's been done with MOOCs and those open educational, the use of the open educational resources, so it's quite a different perspective. It's not that easy at all. There are issues, not only there are always new types being created and there is a kind of a blurring and all the single terms have to or are not very well defined, so that there are many ways of dealing with the whole thing. But there are issues of dropouts when using the MOOCs, of unclarified pedagogy or didactics, of not having quality assurance procedures embedded in the whole thing. Also the financing, Antonio mentioned earlier financing issues when it's about technology, and actually if you look at the procedures, very often technology is financed, but not the didactics, not the pedagogy around it, at least if it's so, it's for a very, very little amount, and the learning methodologies, the how to implement, as Norbert said, how to meet those challenges, how to make it happen that we have enhanced options and transformational processes going on. That's just not clarified. And if those massive open online courses are for free or seemingly for free, there's I want just to remind of the recent investment, $43 million on funding. So that's quite a bit of money which is put into just some system, and nobody puts that lot of money just for nothing. If you look at quality assurance, you can have lots of different criteria and optional definitions how to define it. For example, how is critical thinking being promoted, and what's the relevance of it, and which kinds of asking for societal conditions or epistemological assumptions are being taken. Those are not asked very often, those questions. And if you look at action learning and the options of action learning, is it, if we take just one criterion out of the small list I put together here, if we take just adaptation, is it then more about adapting to existing systems, or is it also about resisting to systems which obviously don't show very, very good and for us meaningful developments? So those issues which are not widely discussed so far, but we should have clearer looks at these topics to get a clear picture about these options. And I'm going to skip now this sharing part, although I think it very important, sharing as a general topic, as a historical topic, and as a very new topic also. Because not only in the OER movement it plays a role, but also, and here's a list of turns up to the sharing turn. You see that many ways of thinking in sciences, in humanities, which play a role. Also sharing plays a role, and I'm a little bit skeptic about it, if this sharing can be a claim the sense of a Copernicanian turn, although it's obvious that it plays a wide role. There are many ways of sharing. Nicholas John pointed out the new forms with Web 2.0 that the sharing does take place without any objects at all, which is very, very new in social networking sites, and which is pointing the finger on one special issue. Also, Andreas Whittle pointed out an important point when it's about large-scale sharing and the sharing of immaterial things. I do not agree with his opinion, but actually the large-scale topic is one we have to be very aware of it. The conceptual part, I said already, I skip it at this point because we don't have enough time for it, but let me point out just a few issues I take as consequences out of these considerations. One is the potential of large-scale dispersions of open educational material, of resources, requires a special attention to the quality assurance. If you just let it go, people coming and going, you have those big dropouts without clarifications about motives and interests, and how to get along with the certificates, and also with the combinations with the headhunting issues, for example, when the students partaking in a course are at the same time headhunted by companies, if that's really a thing they wish to have it, or if they are forced to it. Those are issues one has to be aware of it, and also the outcome in terms of educational qualities. The one thing that's also underestimated in my view is the difference between connecting and bonding. If educational procedures are pointed to connections and connectivist thinking, that's one issue, and that has its value and it's important, but it's not the same as thinking in terms of bonding. And bonding procedures, I think, is very relevant in educational processes as well. So one has to bring these together, these issues, and not just to leave it and to say, well, the main thing is about connections and just the sharing of knowledge in that. So, and another thing, openness and opening. If you look at the policy discourses, educational policies, very often it's being treated as a positive value. But openness or sharing and similar terms, they do not represent values in themselves. It's depending on the context and on the use. To what extent one can judge about it as a positive thing or as a problematic thing. It's the same with laziness, security, or punctuality. All those issues are not just values in themselves. So to say one sentence as a conclusion, there are some chances in open education and open educational resources as promoted by new technologies or enhanced or enabled by new technologies, which can lead us to very positive developments and to overcome reform resistances in a school of the future. But we have to consider education both as a private and a public good in doing so. And we have to be aware of problems that those movements are, and that's really paradoxically, but they can also promote elitist notions of education as well as half-realized education, a term coming from Adorno, Halbbildung, which is not education at all, but it's just something that's rather problematic. So I leave it with that, and thank you, and I hope I could contribute to your discussion, and thanks Antonia for inviting me, and also to the colleagues organizing the conference. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Theo, for sharing with us your experience and making comments about this important aspect of the future. And the future now, as Pedro Veiga mentioned before, we don't know what it will be the future. So let's talk about the present in the future. But let's not make philosophies about this subject. The most important aspect I would like to put on the table is open education. And when we talk about MOOCs, I have been involved in several MOOCs, and from my experience, it is low quality, mainly. Of course, all of us are learning how to work in this environment. No cost for the students, and no certification. What we normally have is a participation certification, not exactly a quality certification of the learning. This means that this means more some marketing strategy for another aspect than an effective teaching. But it's interesting, it's important, are new steps forward. Another thing is open resources. And when we talk about as well open courseware, we have all the same thing. No cost to the students. But I'm questioning this. As a teacher, when I go to the supermarket, I have to pay my bill. When I go to the gas station, I have to pay my bill. Who is going to pay us teachers for offering courses for nothing? I think we are crazy. We all teachers, we are crazy. We are not stupid. So there is something wrong in this, or something should be clarified. Because, for instance, if you have in one course 50,000 students, this is something strange for me. Because you can offer a participation certificate, but not the quality of learning that a student achieves in the end of it. I'm not, let's say, a conservative. I like to innovate. I like doing new things. But these new things should be done with the real good steps on the ground. And I could not understand exactly. I have already, as I mentioned, you participate in several MOOCs. 7 MOOCs I have already participated in. I'm organizing a new MOOC for January for Latin America. It will be in Spanish language. But really, it's something that I don't feel comfortable yet. But you see, if I don't make my mistakes operating in this area, I will not learn. That's what I'm trying to do. Because I think it's something interesting for the future, and I'm learning about it. I'd like to listen other comments about this subject, because I think it's important subject to put on the table and to listen different opinions from different persons. Would you like, one of you would like to comment these situations, please?
Okay. What I can say about it with the Polish experience, I agree with Antonia that something is wrong here, or maybe not wrong, but we must define steps. Because if we have the course for 100 students, we can't communicate with them. So we don't know what's going on the second side. So is the question, is possible to have open resources from a different subject? It's a good idea to do it like this for different ways. I don't know. I feel a bit different sometimes. Maybe a part of them, okay, but not full courses, not more details, maybe only introduction to start learning. I don't know. What do you think, Professor?
Thank you very much, first of all, Professor Hook, for a very, very interesting presentation, and our congratulations for your experience, for research. I think that very important topic and very global topic,
Yes.
and I think that maybe in the future, during our next conference, the LCC 2040, maybe the topic must be one of the subtitles, maybe our conference. And now I invite you kindly for elaboration paper, article, and we invite you publication this paper in our monograph, with include the best article prepared by participation in our conference. It will be a great honor for us, and I think that this topic must be next evaluation and research, and we must find more optimal solution. More opinion, and analyze this opinion presented by different persons, learners, as well as teachers, as persons which conduct such courses. MOOC, very global and important trends, but we have a lot of questions. Yes. Which not decided, and next we must try find solution, and step by step. Now we have not all the answer all questions. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Again.
Thank you.
For beautiful presentation.
We don't
very
have too much time. Any comment from the auditorium? Some other colleagues, please. Theo or Teresa or Ângela or Pedro, Veiga, would you like to make a comment about this subject?
Yes, I would like to make a comment, and thank you, Professor Theo, for your reflections and research on this matter. We have to consider that open education is a reality. We can see that as a competitors, and as a competitors, we must analyze what are they doing. And we can learn with them. We can learn what they are doing positively and what they are doing negatively, because learning is a huge process, and sometimes we learn much more with the negative than the positive. One of the points that I want to mention is as Professor João Duque mentioned, cycle of knowledge are reducing, and it's fundamental. And we are facing a resistance from the teachers to enter in this present future, what we want to call about virtual training. As Professor Norbert mentioned, we need to implement this change. It's a change process in small stage. And probably the first stage is change the mindset of the teachers. They should change their mindset. They should be prepared with new skills, because their students, their participants are in a completely different level, and teachers, most of them are completely behind and not prepared for this school that we want for the present or future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ângela. Very focused on the problem.